Welcome. We're excited to be with you this evening for Wellness Wednesday. We host these weekly, and if you are a guest on our call tonight, you are in for a very big treat. So we have a very special guest. Today, our guest is Dr. Tracy Stroup. And she is just a world of knowledge and information, a good friend of mine and passionate about health and wellness. I'm going to read a little bit about Dr. Tracy. And tonight we're going to be talking about metabolic health, the concept of metabolic health, the importance and role it plays in the body, and kind of uncovering some ideas about the GLP-1 activator, just talking about the importance of the balancing period and all of that. So before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tracy. Tracy is a certified natural health professional, level 2 digestive specialist. She's a master herbalist, aromatherapist, and her journey into health and wellness began with a bachelor's in exercise and sports science. She's got over 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. And not only that, she's a product formulator and an educator. And if you guys do not yet follow her and listen to her podcasts, it's incredible. So she runs the Abiding Wellness Academy. And I could be getting this wrong, Trace, but she also is super passionate about implementing biblical principles in regards to health. So the whole mind, body, spirituality. And I just love that. So Tracy, I'm excited to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. And let's chat about metabolic health and kind of uncover maybe the real truth about it and the role it plays in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thanks for having me back. And I really enjoy your group and watching some of the presentations. And obviously, my last time I was here, I was like, I hate that this product works, but it does. So, a lot of great things that we kind of discussed in that. I think one of the things that we need to realize with metabolic health is it's not just isolated to GLP-1, right? And we talked about this a little bit before, and I think I asked, I was like, hey, can I bring a few slides so that people understand everything? So is it okay that I just share like a few slides? Is that all right? Okay.
Sure.
So I'm gonna send
Let me
you
make you a co-host.
okay.
There
Now
you
I'm
go.
in control. So
You
now the
are. You
whole
got
thing is mine.
it.
So this was just an excerpt from the class that I did called Peptides for Weight Loss. And I'm just going to blow this up so that everybody can see it. So when we're talking about GLP-1s or semaglutide, as people know it, right? That is the natural peptide that's in your body. And it's released at small amounts in relation to the food that you eat. So when you eat something, your body produces this GLP-1 agonist, which activates. Agonist means to activate different processes in your body. And peptides are bridges. So the product that LifeVantage has put out is actually a product that helps activate this GLP-1 peptide in the digestive system at natural levels. So I want to just point out a few things. If people that you're working with have been on an injectable semaglutide or what is called tirzepatide, which is a GLP-1 and GIP, we'll talk about that in a minute. When you switch them to a product that's natural, that's going to naturally activate their own levels of GLP-1, their weight loss will slow down. And that's okay because actually, when you're injecting something like a GLP-1 agonist that's like Ozempic or Wegovy, you are putting in 40 times what the natural level would be for a person. So, is that healthy? Well, absolutely not. That's why on the last podcast we did or last webinar we did, I said I'm not against peptides. I'm against the overdosing of peptides and the abuse of peptides that we're seeing on the market. And so if we can find a product that's going to come in and be like, yes, we're going to activate your own GLP-1 agonists, that's great. So second, it's really important to know that GLP-1, that incretin, which is called, it's a hormone that's released by the digestive system, and it's released by the L cells of the digestive system, is involved in your brain function, your liver function, pancreatic function, your GI tract function, and your heart. So all of these things can become a disease state if you look at them, right? We can have neurodegenerative disease. We can have fatty liver. We can have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. That would be pancreas. We can have any kind of itis of the GI tract, diverticulitis, cellulitis. I'll just go through, right? Ulcerative colitis. And then obviously cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries. You can go down the gamut of those things. All of that is controlled by metabolic health. And then we talk about weight. And all of these things are made in the gut. So right here in the center, you can see GLP-1. And then there's this little thing called DPP-4. That's actually an enzyme that keeps the GLP-1 active for a long time, which we want that. We want this hormone that helps with all metabolic processes stay active. So all of these things, GLP-1, and then there's also one called GIP. This is gastric inhibitory peptide. So GLP-1 and GIP. Okay, so semaglutide is just GLP-1. Tirzepatide is GLP-1 and GIP. And now you have a new injectable called retatrutide, which is a GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon. So there's a trifecta out there. So again, I'll go back to when you use a natural product that is going to help activate your incretins, these natural metabolic hormones, that it can only activate what you have. So we talked a little bit prior to getting on this webinar, as you were telling me some people are taking this product and they're not losing weight or they're actually gaining. So I want to talk about that today, setting this preface of like, what are these incretins? What do they do? And how do you make your incretins higher so that this GLP-1 activator that you had is going to help you produce your natural levels of GLP-1 and then some, right? So a lot of this comes down to what else could be influencing your metabolic function. So we like to take the gut and just isolate it and be like, all right, here's your gut, right? And who knows, Hippocrates was right. 2000 years ago, he said, all health begins in the gut. It does. So the very first thing you have to have is good gut health. So if you're starting a GLP-1 agonist product like this activator and you have poor gut health, it has to take the time to help your body create enough GLP-1 to actually motivate your body to have good metabolic function. If you have poor gut health, which is why you guys have that MB core, which has a lot of things that are going to enhance gut health. So in your product scopes, if you look at it, you have probiotics in there, all the things, which is great. You have nutrients. So first, nutrition. Okay, you have to change what you eat. If you're taking this product and you haven't changed your nutrition, your hydration, your movement, your sleep, your elimination patterns, and your emotional spiritual wellness, no product's going to help you. Okay, it's not magic. It is an activator of your habits. So if you're eating right, sleeping right, moving right, pooping right, drinking enough water, you have good mental, emotional capacity, you're praying, you're working through your stress, you're doing all those things, your GLP-1 activator is going to help you more. Okay, but if you're not doing these things, especially sleep, if people aren't sleeping, you're going to gain on average 10 pounds a year. On average, because when you go to sleep is when you release growth hormone, and growth hormone impacts all of your hormones. So foundations are key. So whoever you're working with, you need to be talking to them about how do you eat? What are your nutrition plans? And I think the biggest thing for women is we don't eat enough. You get on this GLP-1 activator product and it's like this MB enhanced and you're like, I'm not hungry anymore. And because we all have the Weight Watchers mindset where we're counting points and cutting calories, we think, oh, I'm not eating, so I'm going to lose weight. I'm here to tell most of you listening that have had metabolic dysfunction and have tried everything, your issue is malnutrition, hands down. You're not eating enough. So if you don't know how to calculate your macros, find somebody who does, because you need to know how much protein and fat you need to eat first to fuel your hormone pathways, to help heal and seal your gut, to establish neuro pathways of neurotransmitters, to help with patching and cholesterol production, all of that. As a woman, you need protein. And so you need to be eating enough protein. Second, you need to balance your insulin. So if you're going breakfast and then I'm not hungry until like lunch and then I'm not hungry till dinner and you're eating 3 meals a day and like 1,200 calories and getting like 40 grams of protein in, you're not going to lose weight. In fact, you'll probably gain weight because your metabolic function is fueling, but you're not providing it with enough protein, carbs, and fat to build all of these different functions that your body needs. And so your body's going to get smart and it's going to be like, her metabolic function's going really fast, but she's not eating enough. So let's save it and put it on her butt. Let's save some energy just in case she doesn't eat tomorrow. And guess what you do? You don't eat tomorrow either. So regardless of when I work with clients that come to me and have been on injectables or on another program that uses some sort of GLP-1 enhancement, I will tell them, how many macros are you eating? Usually women are like, well, I eat like an egg for breakfast and maybe like half an avocado. And then I have some coffee and then I'll have lunch and I have a salad and I put some chicken on it, and I'm like, okay, well, you've eaten like a leaf of lettuce, probably 20 grams of protein, maybe, and very little carbohydrates. How is your brain working? Oh, I have brain fog. Well, no kidding. So we also get foodophobic. We get afraid of carbs. We get afraid of different things. So some people do have true sensitivities, but when we're talking about macros, those are proteins, carbs, and fat. And per every pound of lean muscle mass that you have, you need at least 1 gram of protein. So let's say you have a 150-pound woman and she has, and you can figure this out by buying a simple scale off of Amazon. I prefer the Oxalind, Oxilind, and I think I have the MD Pro. And basically, it's a scale you step on, you download an app, and you put your thumbs on it, and it measures your BMI, your percent body fat. Now, is it 100% accurate? No. But here's the thing. If you know how much lean muscle mass you are, and say you're 87 pounds of muscle mass, then you need at least 87 grams of just protein a day. Okay,
Wow.
so I know. Yeah, it's
That's
wow,
like
right?
so eye-opening. I feel like this is the problem. People are malnourished is
Oh,
really what it comes
they're
down.
macronourished. They're macronourished because they might be taking their micros. In your product, the MB Enhance and the MB Core, you got lots of nutrition. You got your B vitamins and all the things. It's a great product, but they're macro malnourished. So they're not getting enough protein, essential amino acids that create peptides. Now, what's a peptide? GLP-1 peptide, right? That incretin peptide hormone is made of amino acids. Where do amino acids come from? Protein. So if we're not taking in enough protein and you're taking a GLP-1 activator, what's it trying to activate? A GLP-1 peptide made from amino acids, but you're not eating enough amino acids, so it's activating nothing, point nothing, because you can't make it. You can try to activate it all you want, but that's like stepping on the gas pedal in your car and with no gas in your car and trying to go somewhere. Well, you can use your foot, but you're not going to get very far. So you can't yabba dabba do your way to weight loss when you're malnourished, right? So you have to make sure you're getting enough protein, enough fat, and enough carbs. And we can talk about calculations for macros, but that's might be one of the first reasons that people are taking this product and they're not seeing success. It's because it is diminishing their appetite a little bit because their metabolic process is fueling. All that food noise is gone. Now they're not eating out of habit. Their body is like regaining its structure of like, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? So here's what I would recommend. Set up a 5 meal plan day, okay? Breakfast. And let me just talk about intermittent fasting for the love. Ugh. Women, ladies, stop it. Stop it. Okay. Y'all don't even have enough fuel to perform the autophagy and to put P53 transcriber into action because you're all poor methylators anyway, because you're metabolically broken. Is intermittent fasting good for a period of time for a specific need? Absolutely. Does it work for a period of time for people? Sure. Starvation always works, but it's not sustainable. Most women should not intermittent fast because most women don't eat enough protein. So if you're optimum protein, you're strength training at least 3 times a week. Sorry, my dog's barking. I have a puppy who's very mouthy. But if you're strength training 3 times a week and you're getting optimal sleep and your hormones are balanced, you can intermittent fast. But that's probably like nobody listening. Okay. If you're fasting for biblical purposes, I'm down. If Jesus calls you to, go right ahead. I'm not going to be Jesus. But most women 99% of women shouldn't be intermittent fasting because 99% of women are not optimizing macros. So stop it. I'm giving you free reign to eat breakfast. You should be eating at least 2 eggs. Okay, that's going to be 12 grams of protein, 2 eggs. You should have either bacon or sausage, grass fed, a little bit higher fat content. You can have a little bit of avocado to bring your fat up. Nutrify your meals. I make pancakes out of protein powder. I use 6 egg whites, 1 whole eggs, and a scoop of protein powder. And if you don't want to crack the eggs and waste them, go get an organic egg white substitute, right? It's about 200 milliliters of egg whites, 1 whole egg, and a scoop of protein powder. Zip it up in one of those handy dandy little blenders, put it in a pan, fry it up like a pancake. I'll tell you, you'll never go back. Put some organic maple syrup on there, add some good grass-fed butter, and you're going to get about 30 grams of protein out of the gate. What that's going to do is set every GLP-1 process in your body. Your body's going to be fueling metabolically. It's ready. Then you should eat again about 2 to 3 hours later. A handful of nuts, an apple with peanut butter. Think about good fat and protein. You could have a chopped beef stick. You could have a hard-boiled egg. Like you got to think protein first. You're always optimizing. Protein, then fat and fiber, then carbs. Protein, fat, and fiber, then carbs. Small meals throughout the day. Balancing that blood sugar, never letting it dip or ride. This is not a roller coaster. You want a nice, smooth sail. Then you're going to eat lunch. Salad is fine. You want to eat a salad, that's great. But protein, nutrify it. You put your chicken on there. You might put a little bit of chickpeas for your carbs. A good fatty oil salad dressing. You know, something that's going to hold you over satiety wise. And make sure they're eating 25 to 30 grams of protein at that clip. Okay. And then if you want to have a little fruit after it or a yogurt, you can have coconut yogurt. You can have whatever it is that you like. And then you're going to eat again before dinner because you need to fuel, right? So at like 3 o'clock, you're going to have a snack, and no, Snickers does not satisfy. I don't care what the commercials say. They lie to you. But again, you're optimizing protein. This would be a good time to have maybe some guacamole or hummus with some vegetables. You're getting your fiber in now, right? And then you're going to eat dinner. And you're going to eat around your plate, protein first. You're going to eat your steak, your chicken, your pork, whatever's on your plate first. Then you're going to eat your fiber, your vegetable that should be sauteed in some sort of good oil. Okay, no more like butter spray, no more fat free. Like we're doing some fat. And then if you still want it, you're going to have whatever carbs on your plate, but it should be a whole food carb. I'm not a grains fan. You know, I think there's very specific grains that people can do, but here's the thing, I'll give you a little clinical pearl. If you're having problems with inflammation and you're doing all the things right, including sourdough, pull the grains out for a while and let the body come to homeostasis, and then you can test putting those back in. People do better with grains in the morning than they do at night, and some people don't do well with them at all until you heal the gut. Okay, so, and then before bed, don't do the popcorn because it has 100 calories. Please don't. Eat protein. You're going to go to bed and you're going to release growth hormone that only utilizes protein. And no, you don't have to eat it like right before bed, but you could have a little teaspoon or tablespoon of, I'm a tablespoon girl, tablespoon of peanut butter. If you can't eat all this in a day, think about substitution protein shakes and just having one of those at some point through the day, not as a meal replacement, but as a snack before bed, you know, and don't be boring about it. You don't just have to mix it up with water. You could put a little peanut butter in there, mix it with an alternative milk, you know, jazz it up a little bit. I make smoothie bowls out of my protein. You heard I make pancakes out of it. Like there's lots of things that you can do. I make no bakes out of my protein, except I don't use any grains in my no bake. So there's lots of things that you can do, you know, and looking online for interesting recipes. So that would be first, nutrition optimization. What questions do you have? And drink water.
I could listen to you all day. Let's talk hormones because we were chatting a little bit before this about how that plays obviously a role into holding on to weight, cortisol imbalance. It's such an important piece of that, as well as detoxification, because all of these metabolic functions go together. So let's talk hormones real quick and really talk about the importance of balancing hormones.
Yeah, it's a great one. Well, we talked about insulin. That's a hormone. A lot of people don't look at it, poor little insulin as a hormone, but he is. So we got the nutrition down. We're balancing insulin now. because you're going to eat more times through the day. You're going to stop starving yourself till 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. All these things that people come to me and say, well, but I've always done this. Well, always doing something has brought you to this point. So shouldn't we do something else, right? So be thinking through your always doing something habits and what should you change. Like, but I've always gone to bed at 11:30. Well, maybe we can move it up to 10:30 so that we can get more sleep times, things like that. So thyroid's a big one. A lot of people start a program like this and they're not looking globally. So when I look at an entire foundational program for metabolic health, I look at foundations first, right? Nutrition, hydration, movement, sleep, elimination, emotional, spiritual wellness. We fix those. Then I look at gut health. We're going to look at, do you have parasites? Do you have candida? Do you have dysbiosis? And we're going to fix that because that's going to determine your natural GLP1, GIP, DPP4. How much can Jenny produce? How much can Tracy produce? All depends on the gut. Then we're going to add this MB enhance, this MB core. And now we're moving, right? And maybe you added it here. Okay, fix your gut. And then I look at hormones. And thyroid is the first one that I'll check on women. Now, on men, I do check it as well because it gets neglected and not enough people are checking thyroid in men. So some key hormones to look at, T3, right? This is your active hormone that directly impacts your metabolism. T4 is the hormone that gets produced by the thyroid and then gets converted into T3. So T4 is actually your inactive form of your thyroid hormone until it's converted to T3 in the tissues. Okay. Now that requires a lot of nutrients. It requires iodine. It requires B vitamins. It requires optimal levels of vitamin D. So remember how I talked about macro deficiency? Well, these are micro deficiencies. And these micro deficiencies, if your vitamin D is low, if your iodine's low, your B vitamins are low, they're all going to impact your thyroid. Okay. Then what TSH is, which is normally the marker that they check, is called thyroid stimulating hormone. That's actually released by the pituitary. It's not even released by the thyroid, but it's what stimulates the thyroid. So when your TSH is up, when it's high, it's telling the thyroid to produce more T4 because you need more to convert to T3. So when your TSH is low, it means you have too much. So most of us, that get diagnosed with thyroid issues are not clinical. You get put on medications by really bad doctors who don't understand what to tell you. So before you start taking a med, and even if you have, it's okay. You do not have to be on it forever. I'm here to say it out loud. That's a lie. You can get off medications. I'm not telling you to stop any, but I can tell you that tons of my clients were once on meds and no longer on meds because we fixed all these things. Okay, so even Hashimoto's, you don't need to be on medications for life. You can do foundational things and remove instigators and be completely healthy. So with that said, thyroid is a huge factor in metabolic health. It regulates what's called BMR. That's your basal metabolic rate. That's how fast your metabolism is at rest. Like just sitting on this chair talking to Jenny, this is my BMR. But if I would get up and exercise above it, then that's really my thermogenic BMR, right? So that's where my body starts to increase heat to fuel processes. And when you have low thyroid function, even when you exercise, you are not producing enough heat. And so you're not producing enough thermogenic processes. That's why they say, like, when you exercise, you burn calories. You don't burn calories, you produce caloric benefit to your body that produces metabolic fuel. If you have low thyroid, that doesn't always happen. So another one to look at is what you said earlier, Jenny, is cortisol. And cortisol is what we call our stress hormone. Now, let me just first say that without cortisol, if somebody was chasing you with a knife, you would be like, oh, hi. Cortisol makes you go, run, right? So it's not a bad guy. It's just bad when it's left unchecked for long periods of time. And unfortunately, we are abstract thinkers and we think about things all the time, 24/7. I call it stinking thinking. It's just like worry and fret, and I got to do this, and there's always something on our mind. So our adrenal glands that produce cortisol are always revving and pumping. And what that does is when cortisol gets pumped into our blood, even when we're thinking, it raises glucose. It tells your body like, oh my gosh, I have to run. I need glucose. And so your body's like, okay, Well, we'll just put more glucose into our blood. And so it drives glucose into your blood. And that's a process called gluconeogenesis. This is where glucose production from non-carbohydrate sources like protein gets pushed into the blood. And so even if you're eating protein and you're like, but I eat carnivore, or I eat this and high protein, I don't do carbs, so I shouldn't have that much glucose. If you're stressed, it doesn't matter. Your body will use anything. Your body's not going to be like, well, that's protein. I simply cannot. Of course it's not. It already has processes in there to override you. And so stressed out people tend to gain weight because chronic stress encourages fat storage because it's afraid that when you get eaten, you need to have all this fat to protect your organs. If, it's just a natural process of saving your life. And it actually increases visceral fat, which is that fat around your organs and around your belly. We call it belly fat. It also contributes to insulin resistance because you're jacking up cortisol, glucose is spilling into your bloodstream. And what happens? Well, insulin comes out and says, well, we got to try to pull this into the cells. And if the cells are saturated with glucose and they don't need any more energy, it pulls it into your fat, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to pay that bill? Where's that? And boom, another drop of glucose. Boom, another drop of glucose. And here comes insulin. Okay, we're going to put it in her butt. Okay, put that on her thighs. And so chronic cortisol creates chronic glucose dumping, creates insulin. Guys, insulin is anabolic. That means he builds. And so, yes, insulin builds lots of metabolic processes, but it also builds fat storage, especially when you're pumping glucose. And that's when you start getting the cravings because you're like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. I've been at work all day. It's been so stressful. And you don't want to eat broccoli. You want to eat chocolate, right? Because your body's like, I need something now. And I need quick sugar because I am stressed and I have to dump more glucose into your blood because you have to run away. And so we have to learn to modulate our stress all day long. And that's hard. And so sometimes physical products help, like L-theanine and magnesium and things like GABA. And other times just spiritual things help, like just taking a minute and praying, asking God, like, can you just help my heart calm down? Can you just quiet my mind? Remember, Jesus tells us, like, take every thought captive. Not every thought is from him. And, as far as I know in the Bible that I read, tells me that he has given us peace beyond all understanding. And so when somebody's rattling your brain with stress and thoughts, that's not Jesus. So we do have to take those things captive and think about it from that standpoint. And so we can also get into other things like estrogen and testosterone with men and women, because both men and women have estrogen and testosterone. I think what happens to women that are 50, 40, 50, 60, they get ignored with hormones and hormone testing because, well, you're in menopause, so we don't need to look at your hormones anymore. But honestly, you're producing estrogen and testosterone hormones your whole life. And, in men, estrogen is there, but it's converted quickly into testosterone, or excuse me, testosterone is more dominant than the estrogen, but there's still some there. With women, the testosterone gets converted into predominantly estrogen. So, but estrogen, there's 3 forms, and there's only one good kind that your body uses. And if you get stuck in the other two, like estrone or 16-hydroxy estradiol, then you have an issue of estrogen dominance. You can also have at the top low progesterone, because if you are using cortisol, pumping that stress, cortisol will steal your progesterone and your pregnenolone to build itself. And if progesterone and pregnenolone are up here and they build your DHEA and your testosterone and your estrogen, guess what? You're going to be deficient in all these things. You're going to be hormonally imbalanced. You're going to be tired and moody and fatigued, and your muscles are going to hurt because you have estrogen receptors in your muscles. That's why your hips hurt, ladies, when your estrogen's low. That's why your knees ache. That's why you have no energy. That's why you lose bone density because your cortisol is stealing everything. Also, estrogen influences little hunger hormones called leptin and ghrelin. And so when you have low estrogen, okay, your estrogen's too low, your cortisol stealing all your progesterone, you don't have any building blocks, that's going to be weight gain, especially in the butt, or excuse me, in the abdomen. If you have high estrogen, you're going to kind of look like a pear. you're going to have like more of a narrow waist and bigger thighs and butt. So you can look at somebody and I can know right off the bat, oh, they have estrogen dominance. Oh, they're low in estrogen. And so that's just a little easy thing for you. So if you're taking this GLP-1 product and you're not addressing your thyroid, your cortisol and your stress, your estrogen, there is a good potential that as you fuel your metabolic process, you're fueling all of the other systems as well, except you don't have enough or you have too much. You need to balance your hormones. So it could be another contributor to why you're gaining weight. Pause.
Yes. Wow. Mic drop there. Well, let's talk a little bit about micro deficiencies. I know when we talk about activating and empowering the body to do the work, that's why I so love our products just across the board. But in regards to maybe touching on the importance of reducing inflammation, of course, our Protandim NRF2 helps with that, as well as supporting mitochondrial function. Maybe we can touch on that before we close out. But I think you gave us a lot to think about. I think this is such a great tool, having this information and understanding that the body is the miracle. And when it's given the right tools, it can do the work. So I love it. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to say it. I always tell people the body never does anything wrong. It's just trying to save your life. And it's usually just responding to an environment that you're putting it in, whether it's an environment of toxicity or deficiency. What's the environment? And honestly, we may not know. As I said, as my personal opinion, I think women's health in general in our country is one of the most abused arms of the allopathic field. We start out with young girls that are still developing and we throw them on birth control. And then we have women going through their 20s and 30s where we're doing these weird pap smears and scaring them, giving them, cryotherapy and scaring them about HPV, which your body has toll-like receptors to take care of within 2 weeks. And then we get into our 40s and 50s and 60s and we get gaslighted that we're old and we don't need to worry about it. So it's like our whole life we're dismissed. And I will guarantee you, every person here listening, unless you had an exceptional gynecologist or OBGYN, you probably never had a blood draw at your OBGYN who's supposed to be your female health expert until you were pregnant. Hands down. She probably never tested your hormones. She probably just laid you on that table and put a giant folding chair in there and then scraped around, made you
Stop.
uncomfortable, and then didn't give you any, local or anesthesia for 5 procedures they were going to do and just be like, it'll only pinch for a second, although you felt like your bottom half was exploding with pain. Yeah, it's abusive. So don't get me started because I'm going after everybody. And so long story short,
I mean, let's
how,
not even get into how they treat breast cancer. I don't even can't. That we need
yeah,
to
we
get
have
you
a whole
back.
conversation on that.
We need to get you back to do that, like talking about metabolic health and cancer and how it is a metabolic disease, right? So
Cancer is
that's a
metabolic.
whole other rabbit hole. But
Yeah, whole
Tracy,
other one.
we got to have you back
So,
to talk about that.
okay, so with your particular question on, mitochondrial health and inflammatory markers, with women, we need to advocate for ourselves because your hormones are steroid hormones. So think about what steroids do in the body. They decrease inflammation. So when you have hormone imbalance, you're going to have inflammation everywhere. You can also have underlying infections that are not being addressed because they're not high enough to create sickness, but they are high enough to stimulate your immune system. And what people don't know is fat is part of our immune system. Fat has its own vascular system. It releases these little proteins into the blood called adipokines. Those are immune system antibodies, TNF alpha, interleukin 6. We heard about those during COVID. They were called the cytokine storm. So people that were in a cytokine storm were producing TNF alpha and interleukin 6. Which people were producing more? Who was the most susceptible? Obese, right? Diabetes type 2, people with cardiovascular disease, because they were already overweight and inflamed. People aren't fat, they're inflamed. So if your fat cells are swelling because you're doing a GLP-1 activator, it is because metabolically you are fueling your system for your immune system to address something. Whether it's your hormone imbalance, your terrible gut health, or maybe you have an underlying infection that you don't know about. Now, does that mean you're going to get sick? No, but it does mean that forever your immune system's going to be irritated. It's kind of like that neighbor you live by that you don't really like, but you can't move, right? He's always there. He walks outside and you're like, ugh, I hate that guy. No, love your neighbor. Love your neighbor, y'all. Okay, let's talk about your enemy. You're supposed to pray for them. Jesus never said, what did he say? Love them? Because he didn't really say how much or how hard we should pray. But anyway, that's a whole different thing. So, but my point is, you have to take care of these little things that can be creating inflammation in the fat cells, creating the cytokine storm. More, glucose into the fat cells is going to create a cytokine storm. Hormonal imbalance is going to create a cytokine. So everything is part of your immune system. Your hormones, your white and red blood cells, and your neurotransmitters of your brain are like the Godhead. They are the trifecta of your immune system. So we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That makes up the Godhead. We have the hormones, neurotransmitters, and the white and red blood cells. That makes up the immune head. That's how it works in your body. You can't segregate them. So if you have inflammation somewhere, you have to check all three. And so you can look at a CBC with differential. If you just go get your blood work right this second and pause the video or come back, you can get your CBC with differential, and it has to have a differential on it. Look at your neutrophils, your basophils, your eosinophils, and your lymphocytes. If your neutrophils are above 60, you have an underlying bacterial thing. If your lymphocytes are above 30, you have an underlying viral thing. If your monocytes are above 7, you have an underlying Epstein-Barr issue, which is mono. Probably had mono as a kid. If your eosinophils are 3 or higher, you have underlying parasites. Easy peasy. You guys are probably all freaking out at this point, but listen, it's all easy to take care of. But you have to support your immune system. So if you're like, my hormones are balanced, I'm eating every couple of hours, I'm doing all the things, I'm strength training, but you just checked your CBC with differential and you have an underlying instigator, you could be gaining weight from a metabolic activator. So not everything is cut and dry. It's individualized protocols for people. That's the beauty of what we do in functional and integrative care. We don't do a cookie cutter. So the reason that Jenny does this group is she brings practitioners and other people on that are very knowledgeable in different aspects of health to kind of give you the full picture as either a provider or somebody that's utilizing this product to really get a full whole body look at what is happening with my body, which may not be the same as Jenny's. So people will point to a product and be like, this doesn't work, I'm gaining weight. It's not the product. The product is highlighting what's already broken inside of you. Figure out what that is, and you will get results. So the product is basically metabolically fueling you. Look at it as a gift, like, oh, something else is going on. Let me check my hormones. Let me check my gut health. Let me check my CBC. Let me check. And then find a provider that can help you offset that. That's what I would say.
I love it. I think that's the perfect way to end this webinar. I think you gave us a lot to think about. And, most importantly, I think we can end this with saying our health is in our hands and it's our responsibility, and I love that you brought up spiritual, emotional, what we're eating, what we're all the things are in our control, right? They're in our control. So, thank you, Tracy. That was excellent. Absolutely amazing. And I just appreciate you so much for your knowledge and your way of communication and just keeping it so simple for us to understand. And most importantly, you really made me understand that I'm not eating enough. So I'm going to make some eggs right now. It is eggs and sausage and all the things. So thank you for making us aware as to what our bodies really need. And I appreciate you. And I don't know if you want to, end with anything else, but so
Don't give up. That's what I'll tell. Don't give up. Guys, there's always a bump in the road. Health isn't like this all the time. You're going to hit plateaus. And here's what I'll say. Health should never be built on goals. If you got into this with a goal of losing 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, that should not be what you establish. You should build your health on establishing habits. And when you focus on habits versus goals, those habits will stick. Your fitness goals will change. Your health goals will change every decade of your life. They will, they'll change, but your habits stay. So focus on habits. That's what I would tell you.
I love it. Step by step, little by little, making those life changes and taking responsibility for our health. I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you, Tracy. Adore you. And thanks for being with us this Wellness Wednesday, guys. Tune in every Wednesday night. you know, little by little, you educate yourself and then you can spread that to somebody else and change their life. So thankful that we get to do this together. All right, Trace. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.